for joining us on this edition of Business Daily. Hello, I'm Lee Ji-yoon. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at today's highlights. Koreans are consuming much less milk these days, resulting in huge surpluses. What can be done to help the country's troubled milk industry? We're seeing an increasing number of so-called zombie companies in Korea, leading to concerns that they may be eating away at economic growth. We sit down with an expert to discuss this worrying trend. Audi car owners here in Korea are taking legal action against Volkswagen Group for lying to them about emissions tests. Local law firm Paden says it has filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of 101 Korean Audi owners against Volkswagen Group, Audi Volkswagen Korea, and local dealers, demanding that they return the profits earned through the deception. The law firm says that the plaintiffs had to pay hefty prices to buy cars that don't meet emission standards because of VW's diesel emission scam. Some Audi car owners have taken part in previous class actions with other VW Group model owners, but this is the first case in Korea involving only Audi owners. And now to the latest on the battle between the two brothers for control of Korea's fifth largest conglomerate, Lotte Group. The older brother has made an offer to his younger brother with hopes of ending this fight once and for all. Our Shin Se-min has more.
Shin Dong-ju, the eldest son of the founder of Lotte Group, says he wants to call a truce and for things to go back to how they were before the family feud over control of the conglomerate broke out. Dong-ju has proposed that he take over the group's operations in Japan and his younger brother, Dong-bin, take care of Lotte's interests in Korea. Dong-bin is currently chairman of Lotte Group in Korea and Japan. The offer comes as the rift between the brothers has been deepening. Dong-ju has moved 7 employees at STJ Corporation, a company created to push for legal action against his brother, to his father's main office. He has also demanded Lotte Group send him business-related reports normally only reported to General Chairman. The group, however, refused the request, saying Shin Dong-ju had no legal authority to see the reports. Leading up to the event, Dong-ju became the CEO of the Japan-based Gwangyunsa Corporation, the biggest stakeholder of unlisted Lotte Holdings that controls Lotte Group. Following that, Dong-ju removed his younger brother from the board of Gwangyunsa. The older Shin also filed a lawsuit against his brother and the group's key affiliates to try and wrestle back control. Watchers say Shin Dong-bin is highly unlikely to take his brother up on his offer. Apologizing to the public for the family feud in August, Shin Dong-bin said Lotte Group would not be split under any circumstances.
Separating the group into two is not what I have in mind.
Now, market watchers are questioning whether the warring brothers will ever be able to reach a deal acceptable to both and finally bury the hatchet. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
Shipments of TV panels are on the rise despite uncertainties in the global television market. According to Taiwanese display market watcher Witsview, the combined volume of TV panel shipments by the world's top suppliers topped 182 million units in the first 3 quarters of the year. Experts predict that figure will surpass 242 million by the end of the year, a 7.6% rise from the year before. Korea's LG Display took the top spot in panel shipments, followed by Taiwan's Innolux and Samsung Display. Witsview attributes the rise in shipments to recovering demand from TV manufacturers. Going to a barbecue restaurant and ordering Hanwoo beef from native bred cattle is a much sought-after option when dining here in Korea. But more people are now turning to imported beef due to soaring prices. Our Lee Ju-young tells us more.
Koreans are prepared to pay more for Hanwoo, beef from the country's native-bred cattle, but their willingness to shell out more may be reaching a tipping point. According to Korea Customs Service, beef imports, mostly from countries like Australia, the US, and New Zealand, have been on a steady increase since 2012. Over 222,000 tons of beef has been imported through September this year, logging well over $1.2 million, up roughly 11% from the same period last year. The surge in beef imports is mainly due to the government's initiative from late 2012 to reduce the number of Hanwoo cows and maintain an optimal number in the market. As a result, the number of these cows has dropped by roughly 14% over 3 years to 2.6 million this March. The lack of supply has pushed wholesale prices up by 30% on year to around $17 per kilogram. Experts predict beef imports to Korea will continue to climb for the time being, as the government projects the shortage in Hanwoo will carry on until 2017 on the back of growing demand from restaurants and large retailers. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Milk is not selling well these days here in Korea. In fact, nearly 800 tons of milk is set to go to waste every day, leaving producers grappling with a painful deficit. So how bad is the situation, and what could be the cure for the shrinking milk industry? Our Eunice Kim takes us to one dairy farm for the story.
A dairy farm in the Seoul metropolitan area. It produces 750 liters of milk daily, but receives a proper price for only 650 of it. Because the difference of 100 liters is considered overstock, producers are compensated with less than 10% of the regular price, at 8 cents a liter. Considering feed costs, the farm says it's, at the end of the day, losing 30,000 won, or roughly $26 every day.
The price given to the surplus milk keeps going down. It was 500 won last year, but 100 won this year. Who knows what it will be next year?
An output quota is given to dairy farms because the backlog of dairy products is only piling up, with consistently falling milk consumption in Korea. Milk that is left over has increased by 37% in 2 years, shooting up to 770 tons daily. And as some of that surplus is made into powdered milk, that stock has more than doubled in 2 years to more than 21,000 tons, according to Nonghyup. And the burden is hitting Korea's top dairy producer, Seoul Dairy Cooperative. Registering a deficit of more than $16 million in the first half of this year, the company took the drastic measure of paying up to 40% of its employees' wages in dairy products, like cheese and yogurt, for 3 months. A desperate measure put forth by Nonghyup and the livestock industry is voluntarily culling some 3,800 cows.
We need momentum to get the government and processing companies to put their heads together to come up with some solutions.
But culling cows to maintain milk prices is an outcome attractive neither to farmers nor the public. As everyone agrees, a remedy is urgent. Some say it's time to invest in more competitive dairy products like cheese to propel them to grab more of the market share that has been taken by foreign brands. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Well, Halloween is approaching, but our next story has little to do with trick-or-treats. The zombie company is alive, but barely, needing constant bailouts in order to operate. And Korea is becoming increasingly concerned. Let's find out why.
The Bank of Korea calls them marginal firms, while the media often refer to them as zombie companies. They are companies that require constant bailouts or fail to earn sufficient profit to repay the interest on its debts. If a company's interest coverage ratio is less than 1, it means not enough cash is being generated before interest and taxes to cover even interest payments, and therefore considered a potentially insolvent company. The latest data shows that Korea has witnessed a surge in the number of such companies, surpassing 3,000 over the past 5 years. The number of firms with interest coverage ratio below 1 has increased to 3,295 as of end of 2014, up from 2,698 in 2009. In particular, the percentage of these so-called zombie companies has soared from just over 9% to nearly 15% in the group of large corporations between 2009 and 2014. The growing concern is that these companies that spend so much of their cash paying back interest are unable to invest in new growth areas, which could in turn drag down growth for the domestic economy.
And to tell us more, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. Welcome, Professor.
Good afternoon.
All right, so tell us more about these marginal firms, also referred to as, by many, zombie companies.
Yes, zombie companies is not an academic word. Maybe the media gave such a scary name because they are sitting on scary situation. So as a rule of thumb, the companies that do not generate enough revenues that pays their interest dues and tax is named as zombie companies over 3 years.
All right, well, like we just saw in the report, the number of these companies has been on the rise in Korea. What's the situation like right now?
Well, the real reason of the increasing zombie companies related to expansionary monetary policy with lower interest rate and more money supply. So it became easier for these problematic companies to borrow money from banks. And the situation is really worse for the co-stock companies. It is estimated that over 35% of the co-stock companies are under a marginal situation. That means 1 out of 3 co-stock companies are in difficult situation.
Wow.
And also that is a major problem of big companies. Out of 500 largest companies in Korea, like 10% or 49 companies are under zombie or marginal situation.
10%.
Right.
That's very big. And of course, these companies can't be good for the Korean economy. I mean, obviously, they're going to have some kind of impact on the Korean economy as a whole. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, I think the marginal company's problem is the choice between today's small impact and tomorrow's larger impact. For example, if we clear out the zombie companies today, that means we will have lower employment and lower domestic consumption and income under recession. But if we let these companies go as they are, they come with a bigger impact, which is economy-wide impact. So it is something like a two-edged sword to Korean economy.
All right, well, just yesterday, financial authorities here in Korea convened a meeting to discuss this problem. And they actually instructed commercial banks to follow a rigid loan screening process for companies with financial troubles. What kind of measures has the government put forth, and what are they planning to do to deal with this problem from here on out?
Well, it looks that Korean government is considering two-tier reconstruction strategy for these problematic marginal companies. The tier 1 is for medium and small-sized companies, and Industrial Bank of Korea is in charge of that. And second tier is for big companies, like conglomerates, member companies. And for these companies, the Korean Development Bank is in charge of that. And in addition, the Financial Supervisory Service will give penalties for banks that provide more loans to marginal companies.
All right, well, we're obviously not alone in this. I mean, other countries must have suffered from the rise in the zombie companies. Can you give us some examples and how they dealt with this problem? Well,
historically, the zombie companies last longer in Asian countries. And a famous example is Japanese case in 1990s. Japanese government unsuccessfully handled zombie companies. Therefore, they have more and more zombie companies in 1990s, and it is believed that because of that, they had longer recession. And recently, in addition, there are quite a few marginal companies between Chinese public companies. It is estimated that out of 150,000 Chinese public companies, about 40 companies are under marginal situation.
All right. Well, what about Europe? I've heard some cases in Europe too.
Yeah, in European case, so between European case, when they have a problem like that, in the case of the Germany and UK, they just bail out the problematic companies, the marginal companies. But situation is really different for Southern European countries in the case of the Greece, Italy, and Spain. So in these southern European countries, they'll more protect the marginal companies.
All right. As much as this problematic these zombie companies look, there are those who say that the government really needs to step up efforts in order to help these companies in financial troubles instead of putting more pressure on them and increasing regulations, especially for those small and medium-sized companies.
Right. It is impossible to distinguish between bad and good companies only with the single standard of the timely interest payment. So we saw quite a few great companies that turns out great after long difficult times, like Microsoft and Apple. So when we clear out the zombie or marginal companies, we have to consider the prospects of the business and the quality of the management and the global economic changes altogether.
All right, thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, bye-bye.